Welcome to Rathna, a mystical world where our protagonist has been chosen to grow stronger and survive among the select few. You may be curious about how our protagonist found himself in such a precarious position, nearly losing his life to a vicious hellhound. Fear not, for we shall take a journey into the past to uncover the events that led up to this moment. So prepare yourself for a thrilling ride through time. Meet Ryu Han-bin, our protagonist, who completed his mandatory military service 3 months ago. He felt that it was a good enough reason for him to take a break and unwind. He adopted a laid-back lifestyle, waking up at noon and spending most of his day playing video games on his computer. It's safe to say that he was indeed being lazy. Upon completing his military service, he hoped to reintegrate into society and enjoy socializing again. Sadly, for the past 3 months, he had made little progress and found himself spending most of his time immersed in video games. This new reality had become monotonous and unfulfilling for him. However, fate had other plans for him. One fateful day, his life took an unexpected turn. A black mist emerged from his computer screen and sucked him in, causing him to scream in agony. Little did he know that this would mark the beginning of an incredible journey that would change his life forever. Our protagonist found himself in a blank, colorless space, devoid of any sensations or physicality. His existence was reduced to mere consciousness, and he wondered if he had already passed on to the afterlife. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound that reached his ears. It was a voice announcing, "All the chosen ones have been gathered." A group of godlike beings selected 7 billion people from Earth as the chosen ones to be transported to Rathna. However, during Ryu's transportation, an error occurred with his guideline system, which was meant to assist him in his new life. The godlike beings overlooked the issue, deeming it insignificant since it only affected one person. Despite the error, Ryu was still sent to Rathna as a chosen one, and this is how he ended up in the unknown world of fantasy. Returning to the present, we see our protagonist, Ryu, who has triumphed over the Hell Dog, earning experience points that would enable him to level up and grow stronger. As Ryu repeatedly smashes the dead Hell Dog's head with a rock in his hand, he eventually tosses the stone aside. Overwhelmed with emotion, he tears up, realizing that his dreams and plans after completing his military service had been shattered, particularly his desire to date an attractive girl. The system suddenly interrupted Ryu's thoughts, informing him that his current abilities gave him only a 5% chance of survival. Shocked by this revelation, the system then asked him if he wanted to end his life. Although the idea shook him, Ryu quickly dismissed it when he realized that even if he were to die, he wouldn't be sent back to Earth. Determined to survive, Ryu stood up and resolved to become stronger, unlocking his willpower and fighting spirit in the process. He was driven by the hope that one day he could return home if the opportunity presented itself. In pursuit of this goal, he decides to try his very best to survive. Just then, the system interrupted him once again, prompting him to choose a skill. Ryu was filled with excitement as he browsed through the available options. He came across the warrior class, which would grant him incredible martial arts skills, along with the special ability to use aura. However, Ryu quickly realized that although it may be fun in games, using such skills in real life could prove to be dangerous without the necessary expertise. With this in mind, he decided that the most suitable class for him was the magician class. It was a long-range combat class, which made it less risky and dangerous for him. To his dismay, Ryu was shocked to find out that he was incompatible with the magician class, despite selecting it. He attempted to choose various other classes, except for the warrior class, but was denied each time due to his incompatibility. Left with no other options, Ryu reluctantly selected the warrior class. The system then prompted him to select a beginner's weapon. Determined to choose a long-range weapon like a spear, Ryu was surprised when the system granted him a long sword instead, due to an error. This caused Ryu to question if the system was intentionally putting him in danger, and if it wanted him to fail. Ryu expresses his frustration to the system, urging it to fix the error and provide him with a spare weapon as he initially wanted. However, the system disappears without any response, leaving Ryu lost in thought. He remembers that during his transportation to Rathna, the guideline system had encountered an error, which makes him wonder why it wasn't resolved since it was his only source of help. Despite his confusion and disappointment, Ryu picks up the sword, acknowledging that it's still better than using a rock. With determination, he begins his journey of leveling up in Rathna, knowing that it will not be an easy path. 7 days have passed since Ryu arrived in Rathna, and despite his numerous attempts to inquire about returning home, the system remains unresponsive, leading him to suspect that the error might be the cause. Regardless, Ryu has spent the last week fighting for survival against the Hell Dogs. He has observed that these monsters also level up, and his fighting experience has improved significantly, despite his lack of talent with the sword. After enduring a grueling week, Ryu finally reached level 2 and unlocked his first skill, Stab. Returning to the present, we find Ryu inside a cave, consuming the nutritious meat and blood of a slain Hell Dog, as recommended by the system. As he savors the flavor, he ponders the events of his first week in Rathna and realizes that the fantasy world might be artificially created. He questions why he was chosen and wonders about the fate of the other 7 billion candidates who were also selected. Amid his thoughts, the system suddenly appears, informing Ryu that he can leave the rock mountain once he reaches level 5 and meet up with the other chosen ones. Ryu was taken aback by this information, and the system clarified that Rock Mountains was a designated safe zone with a lower mortality rate and faster experience point gains. It was where the beginner chosen ones were sent to learn about their situation and level up to level 5, with only stat-matched monsters appearing. The system emphasized the importance of Ryu reaching level 5 and meeting up with the other chosen ones, as once they all reached level 20, they could travel to the Rathna continent. Ryu was initially confused by all the information he had just received from the system, but he took some time to process it all. He realized that the reason the Hell Dogs were able to level up was because he was also gaining experience points and leveling up himself. However, when he tried to inquire about what to do once he reached the Rathna continent, he was met with an error message from the system. He also attempted to ask if he could go back home, but received yet another error message, which left him feeling annoyed and frustrated. Realizing that the system was not a reliable source of information, Ryu decided that he needed to level up to level 5 so that he could meet up with the other chosen ones and gather more valuable information on how to escape from Rathna. With his determination set, Ryu embarked on his hunt for Hell Dogs, fighting and pushing himself to grow stronger. However, as he continued to face off against these monsters, he noticed that they too were becoming stronger with each encounter. But Ryu didn't falter, continuing to fight with his life on the line day after day. And finally, after 27 days of struggle, he was on the brink of reaching level 5. Ryu had worked hard for weeks and had acquired 3 skills: Stab, Side Slash, and Vertical Slash. He was excited to see the progress he had made and eagerly checked his level, only to be met with an error message. He was confused by this and was interrupted by the system, which informed him that his level was reset back to level 1. Ryu was in a state of shock and disbelief, thinking that it might be a bug. However, when he opened his status window, his suspicions were confirmed as he saw his level drop back to level 1, undoing all of his hard work over the past few weeks. Ryu's initial outburst of frustration was quickly followed by a realization that he still had his acquired skills and stats. Though his level had been reset to level 1, he saw a silver lining in the fact that the monsters in the safe zone would also be at level 1, making it easier to level up to level 5 once again. However, his assumptions would soon be proven incorrect. Despite Ryu's efforts to level up, the Hell Dogs kept getting stronger and he continued to put his life on the line. However, no matter how many times he reached level 5, he was always dropped down to level 1, leaving him stuck in the safe zone. After 7 years of repeating the same cycle, our protagonist now had a completely natural physique. He had gone through countless hellish situations, but during this time, he discovered that chosen ones did not age, and their incredible recovery ability allowed all injuries to heal within a single day. Despite remaining at level 1 throughout the past 7 years, Ryu's stats did not decrease. However, he was unable to acquire any new skills since he couldn't level up past level 4, leaving him with only his Stab, Side Slash, and Vertical Slash skills. Despite the odds against him, the Hell Dogs continued to grow stronger, but Ryu was also growing stronger with each battle. The next scene shows one of the godlike beings in charge of transmitting the chosen ones during the 5th operation. After successfully completing the transmission, he stretches and reflects on the fact that this was his 5th time doing so. He hopes that there will be some skilled players among the chosen ones this time around. As he prepares to leave, he notices a broken box on the floor. Puzzled, he picks it up and finds a picture of Ryu, who is among the 3rd generation of chosen ones currently logged into Rathna. After repeating the same schedule for 10 years, Ryu gave up counting the number of days he had been in Rathna. He realized that there is nothing he can do to change his situation, so he decided to devote himself in doing the things he can. With this he built a house and began living his life without rage anymore. As our protagonist sets out to hunt hell dogs, he is suddenly attacked by one. However, to the surprise of the hell dog, Ryu's hands were already armed and ready. Unfortunately, in the chaos of the fight, Ryu's newly built house was destroyed by the impact of their clash. This greatly annoys Ryu and he unleashes a tremendous amount of aura, urging the hell dog to pay for the damage with its bones. The hell dog retaliated with a powerful fire blast, but Ryu was able to withstand it with his sheer strength. Despite lacking any talent in swordsmanship, Ryu managed to create the ultimate attack, Cross Impact, by combining and mastering the 3 skills he had acquired from the system: Stab, Vertical Slash, and Side Slash. With this attack, Ryu destroyed the hell dog effortlessly. The scene then shifts to the godlike being who is still staring at Ryu's picture, realizing that he was the chosen one who got bugged. He wonders why Ryu is still there and then notices that Ryu is in Rathna. He recalls that the 5th generation of chosen ones were sent to Rathna, and the 4th generation to Rathna. Realizing that Ryu is from the 3rd generation, which was sent to Rathna 22 years ago, the being becomes fearful. He knows that if certain individuals find out, it could spell doom for him. He also couldn't kill Ryu, so he checks Ryu's stats and wonders how he survived with such poor stats. However, his expression changes as he realizes that Ryu's poor stats could actually work in his favor. While enjoying his meal, Ryu opened his status window, which displayed false stats at first. However, upon calling out to view extra stats, his true stats were revealed, which showed that he was tremendously overpowered. This gave Ryu hope that he could leave the safe zone and finally interact with other people. However, his excitement was short-lived when the godly being from before interrupted him, forcefully sending him to the Rathna continent. The being's goal was for Ryu to die, as he was only level 4 and all his records would be erased upon his death. Ryu was sent to the Rathna continent against his will, causing him great surprise. His arrival caused a surge of lightning, which awakened a wyvern that was displeased by it. The wyvern recognized it as a sign of otherworldly demon, our protagonist, appearing in the Rathna continent. As Ryu arrives at the Rathna continent, he gazes at the red sky with dead tree branches scattered on the ground. In disbelief, he leaps into the air, finally feeling free after years spent in the hellish rock mountain. However, his excitement is short-lived as he lands face first into a river. The system then explains to him that he is in the Saith Forest, located in the Greylut Kingdom in the northern part of Rathna continent. Ryu is bewildered by the fact that he was transported there despite not reaching level 20 yet. He quickly checks his status window and is surprised to see that he has already reached level 5. In addition, he notices that he has acquired a new skill called Communication. After questioning why he was transported, Ryu is surprised to see an error message pop up on his status window. However, it quickly disappears and reveals his sole purpose in the Rathna continent, to assassinate one of the 6 goddesses of Rathna. This would earn him 3 rewards: eternal youth and immortality, being sent back to Earth with all his stats intact, and granting him any 3 wishes. The system then provides Ryu with 2 factors to consider while being on the Rathna continent: keeping his identity as someone from another world a secret, and registering at the Hunters Guild in the corporate city of Onpris. While Ryu contemplates the new information he received, he is suddenly interrupted by the wyvern, which he initially mistook for a dragon. The wyvern is agitated by the appearance of Ryu, whom she recognizes as an otherworldly demon, and prepares to attack. Ryu draws his sword to defend himself, but is dismayed to discover that he had dropped it upon arriving on the Rathna continent. With no other options available, Ryu dodges the wyvern's fierce blue flames and counters with a single punch, successfully subduing the creature and leaving himself stunned at his own power. The wyvern, now subdued, proceeded to share her backstory with the protagonist. She revealed her name to be Ephra and that she used to reside in the Exrad Kingdom, where she was recognized as a dragon by the kingdom's brilliant knight. She had a mount, and both were considered the pride of the entire kingdom. However, misfortune struck when the crown prince of the kingdom demanded to ride her. Much to the prince's shock, mounting a dragon was not an easy feat, and he ultimately died in the attempt. As a result, Ephra's mount was beheaded, but she was fortunate enough to be saved by kind guards who let her go. After losing her home, she wandered around the forest. She thought that she could finally mourn her mount and have peace, but she was repeatedly attacked by otherworldly beings who wanted to kill her to boost their stats. Despite defeating each of them every single time, she refused to kill any of them as it went against her moral code. However, one day she was attacked by a group of otherworldly demons who were too strong for her to defeat. In tears, she explained that she had nowhere else to go as they kept appearing to kill her. So, she had to fend for herself. Ryu shows little interest in the wyvern's story and instead threatens her with his sword, demanding to know how she knew he was from another world. However, upon hearing her explanation, Ryu is surprised to realize that she had just guessed. He then asks if he is in the Greylut Kingdom, but the wyvern informs him that the kingdom was destroyed long ago and is now known as the Xrad Kingdom. Ryu was deeply frustrated by this revelation and he demanded to know why the wyvern had attacked him. She explained that it was because he was perceived as an otherworldly demon, which only irritated Ryu further. He was confused and asked her to clarify what she meant by demon. The frightened wyvern revealed that the information came from a certain goddess, which piqued Ryu's interest. She explained that when otherworldly humans first appeared 40 years ago, they initially coexisted with the Rathanes. However, their peaceful coexistence didn't last long, as the otherworldly humans began killing the Rathanes to level up. As a result, the strongest of them formed a group called the Great Earth with the goal of killing the goddess. After the otherworldly humans became a force to be reckoned with, their tyranny was eventually put to an end when 4 heroes from the Rathanes emerged. These heroes were Barlot, the Sword King, Zenobia, the Archmage, Garhan, the Terrible, and Halion, the Transcendentalist of life and death. With the combined powers of these heroes, they were able to wipe out all of the otherworldly humans in an instant and restore peace to the continent. Following the end of the otherworldly humans' tyranny, the 6 goddesses blessed the continent, and the otherworldly humans became known as demons who made contracts with the wicked demon god. After hearing the wyvern's explanation, Ryu was both stunned and frustrated. He had just escaped from Rock Mountain and now he was faced with the prospect of becoming the enemy of all the Rathians. He trembled in disbelief and annoyance as he realized the gravity of the situation. In a fit of anger, Ryu drew his sword and declared that he would defeat the Demon King or whoever brought him to Rathna. With a menacing glare, he warned the wyvern not to reveal his identity to anyone, to which she obediently complied. 5 days later, Ryu sets off to Onpress City, remembering the information he had asked the wyvern about it. She had explained that the city was located in the northern region of the Xrad continent, a place teeming with resources that any hunter would dream of, including dungeons where countless monsters continuously spawn. Upon his arrival at Onpress City, Ryu headed straight to the Onpress Hunter Guild. As soon as he entered, his towering size left everyone in the room stunned and surprised, including the other hunters. With a slightly anxious expression, Ryu approached the counter, and the receptionist appeared intimidated by his imposing figure. Despite this, he expressed his desire to become a hunter. Ryu arrived at the Hunters Guild with apprehension and approached the reception desk nervously. He tried to calm himself down as he provided his information and introduced himself as Eric instead of his real name, fearing that it would reveal his otherworldly identity to the hunters and people. The receptionist gave him a scary look but greeted him with a smile and asked how she could assist him. Ryu responded by expressing his desire to become a hunter, which caused the hunters behind him to prepare themselves aggressively. As Ryu noticed the other hunters getting armed and ready, he couldn't help but feel scared for his life. Suddenly, we are transported back in time to a moment when Ryu was with Ephra, the wyvern. Ryu had requested Ephra's assistance in leading an easy life in the city until he could complete his quest of killing one of the goddesses. However, Ephra rejected his plea, believing that Ryu would eventually betray her once he obtained what he wanted. Following careful consideration, Ephra detected a profound bond between them and elected to lend Ryu a hand, which made him overjoyed. Ephra advised Ryu to change his clothes first, but was taken aback when he undressed in front of her. Ephra became annoyed by Ryu's actions and questioned him, which led to a lengthy exchange between the two. However, Ephra ultimately threw in the towel and resigned herself to watching Ryu undress in frustration. Afterward, Ephra proceeded to explain the common sense of the world to Ryu. However, he was disinterested and only wanted to know how he could meet the goddesses. Ephra informed Ryu that the goddesses rarely interacted with people, even among the Rathanes, and that the only way to connect with them was to become one of the 4 heroes or perform a great service worthy of their blessings. Therefore, The easiest route to achieving his goal would be to become a hunter and hunt the dungeon monsters created by the demon god Ormfloss. Upon hearing this, Ryu understood why the guideline system had directed him to become a hunter. Ephra was surprised by this revelation and asked about the guideline system, prompting Ryu to point at it. However, Ryu was taken aback when he discovered that Ephra couldn't see the guideline system, leading him to realize that only he had the ability to see it. Returning to the present, we see a nervous Ryu who is frightened for his life as the other hunters and receptionist stare at him with terrifying expressions. The receptionist instructs him to place his hands on the measuring stone to determine his level, all while giving him a frightening look. As the level measuring process began, tension gradually built up in the room, with each hunter preparing their weapons. Despite feeling scared, Ryu couldn't help but daydream about how cool he would look and the expressions on everyone's faces if the measuring stone indicated a high level for him. However, his daydream was interrupted, and the tension was broken when his level was displayed as a level 5 swordsman. Upon seeing this, all of the hunters in the room had shocked expressions before bursting into laughter. Ryu was shocked by the reaction of the hunters and receptionist and questioned what was going on. The receptionist apologized, explaining that they had almost mistaken him for an otherworldly human. She also stated that if he had been a high level, they would have all attacked him, much to Ryu's surprise. The hunters behind them then shared a crucial fact, stating that most otherworldly humans are at level 20 and often come to the Hunters Guild to become hunters. Ryu sighed in relief and felt happy for the first time, realizing that he had a relatively low level. The receptionist then explained to Ryu that registering as a hunter would cost him 300x, which made Ryu feel sad as he remembered that he had borrowed 400x from the wyvern. Despite this, Ryu handed over the required amount and received his hunter's badge. The receptionist also told him that he could come back for a new badge if he believed he had leveled up. The receptionist then asked Ryu if he had any quests in mind, and Ryu replied that he would like to explore a dungeon. However, their conversation was interrupted by Laude, a level 27 magic swordsman who rudely pushed Ryu away, calling him a level 5 trash. Laude then approached the receptionist and demanded a quest to a dungeon. The receptionist then decides to give Laude a quest and suggested that Ryu join his team, which still had a space. However, Ryu was hesitant to team up with Laude, and before he could refuse, Laude interrupted and insulted Ryu for being a low-level trash. He claimed that he already had a newbie on his team, prompting her to introduce herself as Atis, who is supposedly a level 25 mage. But to Ryu's surprise, the guild line system displayed her level as 37, which made him wonder why she had lied about her level. Nonetheless, he shrugged it off, assuming that she must have had a reason for doing so. Ryu's thoughts were then abruptly interrupted by Laude, who transformed into an ultimate douchebag and continued to mock Ryu's level. However, he begrudgingly accepted Ryu into his team as a special request from the receptionist. Ryu was annoyed by Laude's taunts but was interrupted yet again as Laude grabbed onto his sword, mockingly asking if Ryu wanted to be the Sword King with such a large weapon. As Laude tried to lift the sword, he became stuck, unable to pull it due to its immense weight, prompting him to wonder how Ryu could possibly carry such a massive sword. Ryu became frustrated and gave Laude a threatening look, resulting in an intense stare down between the two. Ryu then lifted his sword, urging Laude to let go of it. The other hunters in the room thought that a fight was about to break out, as they witnessed a once timid Ryu suddenly take action. However, our focus shifts to a cluster of hunters present, whose commander appeared intrigued by Ryu. As the intense stare down continued between Ryu and Laude, with Ryu clearly dominating in every masculine aspect, Laude became increasingly frightened. However, their banter was suddenly interrupted by Berkman, the leader of another group of hunters who took a sudden interest in Ryu, particularly his physique. Berkman was able to put an end to the fight by urging Ryu to stop, which he complied with, not wanting to cause any trouble with the other hunters. Laude, lying on the floor, lamented that no one would pick a level 5 trash like Ryu, which made Ryu feel sad, realizing that Laude was right. But Berkman interrupted once again, commenting on Ryu's impressive physique and stating that leveling up should be easy for him. Ryu was taken aback as Berkman, the hunter at level 25, gazed into his eyes and offered him an invitation to join their party. Berkman then turned towards his companions and inquired about their views on the matter. To Ryu's delight, all members of the group were in favor of him becoming a part of their team. As a result of Berkman's invitation, Ryu seized the chance to embark on his first raid with their team. During the mission, he received detailed introductions of each party member's identity. First, there was Berkman himself, nicknamed Ropal, a level 25 swordsman and the strongest tank in Onpris. Next, there was Amber Bonnet, also known as Muscle Mummy, a level 21 spearman and the heavy damage dealer of the team. The third member was Berkman's sister, Erwin Ropala, a level 16 spiritualist healer. Lastly, there was Hubert, the group's mage, a level 18 magician, and the newest addition, Adonis or Ryu, the team's carrier. Nevertheless, despite his low rank, Ryu remained determined to hone his skills and level up. After the intense battle, Erwin summoned Ryu and informed him that it was time to gather their loot. Ryu followed her lead and met up with the rest of the group. Erwin then proceeded to dissect the monsters to retrieve their magic stones. As she revealed the value of the magic stones, the rest of the group erupted in excitement. While observing the brutal dissection of the monsters, Ryu quickly began to gather his own loot, shocking Erwin with his speed. When she asked him how he was able to do it so quickly, Ryu simply replied that he had been doing it for 20 years. The Berkman team was surprised by this new information and asked Ryu how old he was, to which he replied that he was 24 years old. This led them to inquire about his parents and their whereabouts. Ryu then shared with the team that he was kidnapped 20 years ago and doesn't know anything about his parents or what they look like. As he told his story, the team was moved to tears. The team consoled and cheered up Ryu, who expressed his gratitude for their kindness and for accepting him as a level 5. However, Berkman reassured him that levels were not important, citing his own experience as a level 25 for 5 years. This news stunned Ryu, and the team explained that there were no formidable monsters in the area except in the dungeon, making it difficult to level up. However, to Ryu's surprise, they all vehemently declared in a unified, intimidating manner that they would never venture into the dungeon, leaving Ryu shocked as he wonders how he is supposed to level up. After all this, Ryu was shocked and decided to excuse himself from the group, stating that he needed to practice his sword. The rest of the team allowed him to go, but they were worried about him. Hubert, in particular, decided to follow him. However, when he reached outside to accompany Ryu, he was shocked to see that Ryu was nowhere to be found. The scene shifts and we witness Ryu, the main character, sprinting at an astonishing pace in search of monsters that can boost his experience points. Unfortunately, all the monsters he encounters are too weak, causing him to come to a halt and collapse onto his knees in frustration. Eventually, he regains his composure and decides to return home. However, his plans are interrupted when he hears what appears to be the sound of a high-level monster. Filled with excitement, he leaps through the air, fully determined to hunt the monster. However, upon arriving at its location, he is shocked to discover the presence of Atis, a supposed novice hunter from the Hunters Guild. As he takes a closer look, he realizes that Atis is, in fact, a man and not a woman, and he is standing there completely naked. As Ryu gazes in awe at Atis's naked form, he chooses to brush aside his confusion and turns around, intending to depart at once. Nevertheless, Atis grows suspicious of Ryu and implores him to halt, demanding to know why someone of his low level, a mere level 5, is in the vicinity. Despite his lack of interest, Ryu attempts to explain that he is merely passing through. However, Atis remains unconvinced and picks up his wand, casting a spell of fire magic to obstruct Ryu's path. Ryu was filled with deep frustration and reacted boldly by snatching the wand from Atis's hand like a true alpha male. He questioned Atis's motive for looking down on him due to his low level. While they engaged in a heated argument, the detestable Laude suddenly appeared behind them, enraged by the false impression that Ryu was assaulting his partner, who was actually a male. Upon realizing the misunderstanding, Ryu urgently urged Atis to put on his clothes. Assuming that Ryu was disregarding him, Laude grows increasingly infuriated and unleashes a powerful aura. He charges towards Ryu, who remains oblivious to the impending attack. Unaware of Laude's assault, Ryu bows down to apologize, accidentally positioning his sword horizontally and making contact with Laude's testicles. This results in a massive explosion, ultimately putting an end to Laude's reign of douchebaggery. The night has fallen, and Ryu stands outside a building where Laude is being treated with great urgency. Berkman emerges from the house and approaches Ryu, reassuring him that it was not his fault. Despite this, Ryu empathizes with Laude's suffering and struggles to forgive himself. Their conversation is interrupted by Erwin, who informs them that while Laodai's life is not in danger, her current abilities are insufficient to provide him with the necessary treatment. Upon entering the room to check on Laodai's condition, Ryu and the other men present fall silent. As they knew that although Laodai may have been at fault for his misfortune, the pain and suffering he is enduring are not something that can be easily alleviated or comforted. The following morning, Atis escorted Laodai back to Onpra city. Learning the truth about Atis's gender, Laodai found it difficult to face him. Additionally, the high-rank monster that had piqued Ryu's interest and made the noise was nowhere to be found. However, this was soon forgotten as Ryu spent the next 3 months with Berkerman's party. 3 months later, in front of the safe forest, Ryu is seen with Berkerman's team in their camp discussing Laodai, who had entered a dungeon alone. While everyone appears astonished by this, Ryu is surprised as to why they are worried, explaining that Laodai has a high level. However, Amber clarifies that while this may be true initially, Laodai would still be no match for the dungeon monsters, as he is not accustomed to fighting them. These monsters are not the same as their normal ones and are originally from a different world. They were created by the dungeons set up by the evil god Ormfloss and are typically of high level, ranging from level 30 and above. After learning about the dungeon's dangers, Ryu becomes determined to go there even if he has to do it secretly, as he believes that encountering such monsters will help him level up. However, his determination is thwarted when Berkerman and Erwin inform him that most otherworldly humans typically enter the dungeon in secret. Ryu then asks why Laodai went there, to which Berkerman explains that it was likely to find a healing artifact. These artifacts come in various shapes and abilities in the dungeon, and Laodai's goal may have been to find one to heal his nuts. With this, the Berkerman's team decided to sleep. However, Ryu couldn't stop thinking about how much an artifact would help him. He decided to seek Efra's help and set out to find her house. While wondering about her whereabouts, he encountered 3 dungeon monsters, which left him greatly shocked. Ryu prepared himself as the system displayed information on the dungeon monsters, a level 31 species called Tadiro. The monsters had a durable body that could withstand sword attacks, but they were weak to magic. Ryu was shocked by this revelation, and wonders how he was meant to defeat them when they were immune to physical attacks. In disbelief, he threw his sword at one of the monsters and successfully killed it, much to his excitement. The 2 remaining Tadiro were brimming with shock and fear, wondering how Ryu was able to kill their companion. However, Ryu interrupted their banter and quickly struck one of the 2 down, while the other ran for its life. Ryu gave chase and found the monster hiding under a tree root. Determined not to let it go, he uprooted the tree while the monster shook in terror. Ryu's attention was suddenly drawn to a portal that he spotted underneath the tree, and he wondered what it was. The guideline system explained that it was a portal connected to a dungeon, which prompted Ryu to burst with excitement as he readied himself for a thrilling ride.